Hello, I'm Charles Gov't, Australasia's passion provocateur. Welcome to this week's episode of the Charles Gov't Show, episode 147. And it's great to be with you, having missed a week because we took Easter off. This also happens to be Greek Easter, a week after the non-Greek Easter. So I hope Easter was good, or if you're Greek, I hope you are enjoying Greek Easter. In this week's episode, I want to explore one of the three big lies that feature in a well-known joke. I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. The other two big lies I cover in the show. I'm sad that the times are changing and that the government is not here to help you. Certainly nowhere near as much as it used to do. In today's show, I share with you 15 current factors that lead me to this sad conclusion. I'm sure when you hear these 15, you'll be able to identify even more factors. And I share 7 practical steps that you can take to handle this sad and disappointing situation. I urge you to deeply think and ponder on the steps that you now need to take to avoid undue reliance on your government at all levels. They are not here to help you, and they are not concerned about you or your family. Our format for the show, as usual, is that I share today's big idea. I share with you 6 resources to help you to take action on the big idea. Have a quick review of some key happenings in the week, and then the last part of the show is really for newer viewers and listeners, where I cover the foundational principles for the show and details about my background. So let's go with today's big idea. Do not trust or rely upon any governments at any levels or bureaucracy, federal, state, or local governments. They are not here to help you. It's sad, but I believe it to be true. I finished my university degree in the early 70s. I have clear memory of what government was like back in those days. It is much, much different now. A well-known joke from the 70s was, what are the 3 big lies? The first one was, the check is in the mail. Well, some people have never used a check, but the check is in the mail was number 1. Number 2, I promise I'll love you in the morning. That's a bit risque, of course, but that's okay. And number 3, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. It would always get a laugh. All 3 of them would get a laugh. Times have changed. I'm going to share with you 15 factors that reinforce for me what the ways that this has changed that have really led me to this sad conclusion. And I hope that it makes you, or it triggers you, to think about other factors that give you that evidence, so that you don't put undue reliance on governments, that you don't trust them. Number 1, politicians do not reply to your correspondence if it doesn't suit them. I have many, many examples from me and from clients and from friends who've raised crucially important issues with politicians that are difficult, and they simply don't even get a reply. You know, they sometimes get a standard response, thanks for your letter, we'll get back to you, and they never do. I think there should be a law around this issue about politicians having to reply to their constituents. Number 2, the Australian Tax Office, or the tax office in your country, wherever you are listening. They act in ever more unfair ways. I used to be a tax lawyer for 20 years. The tax office used to be a reasonable, fair organisation. No longer. The desire and need by government for your money is such that the tax officers are not interested in fairness or reasonableness or justice. Number 3, Laws are unduly complex and are used to trap citizens whilst at the same time being ignored by criminals, and then bureaucracy doesn't even prosecute the criminals. The criminals flout the laws and honest citizens try to pursue them, and then when government's out to get you, the complexity will be used against you. Of course, whilst I'm going through these 15, because we've only got limited time, I can't expand too much because each one of these could be a show in its own right. But I'm painting the picture for you about why you need to take action. Number 4, government child service agencies are quick to take children from their families if those families don't follow government dictates. Government thinks it can raise children better than you can. And then they get placed with foster parents, and then the stories that are coming out about the quality of those foster parents will make your, yes, good question, will deeply upset you if you bother to take an interest in it. Number 5, cannabis and many psychedelic drugs are banned under the war on drugs. These drugs have been used by humanity for thousands of years. Government says, we're doing it to protect you. I call BS on this. Number 6, alcohol is allowed. Even during lockdowns, all of the alcohol vendors were making huge amounts of money. People were at home, what they could get was alcohol. Let me tell you that the harm caused by alcohol in societies is far, far greater than the harm caused by drugs. So why do you think alcohol is allowed and psychedelic drugs are not? That's right. The decision makers are getting benefits from what they approve and what they don't approve. Nothing to do with what's good for you, what's bad for you, and nothing to do with you being smart enough to make your own decisions. Number 7, the ongoing expansion of government bureaucracies at federal, state, and local levels, involving themselves in all sorts of things, because I learned from a wonderful friend of mine, excellent thinker, Colin Benjamin, that the number one rule of a bureaucrat is to keep his job. And he showed that to be true in the whole unemployment area, where the government is not interested in reducing unemployment. The bureaucrats will take all those steps that make sure they keep a job. So they're not really interested in reducing unemployment levels, because if that happens, then bureaucrats will lose their jobs because they will be unnecessary. Bureaucrats are interested in their own income levels, their own cushy situations, not in making life better for you. Number 8, the smart cities pushed by the United Nations under the nonsensical 17 goals of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Smart cities is going to be a way to track your behaviour and control you. Number 9, the 15-minute cities, what I now call, from having learnt this from Christine Anderson, the member of the European Parliament, 15-minute ghettos. Governments want to trap you in an area 15-minute walking distance from your home, and you're not allowed to go out of that area more than 100 times per year. This is a 15-minute ghetto or a 15-minute concentration camp. Take an interest at your local council level. Push back hard against it. This is imprisonment, sold as a wonderful thing. Number 10, front page of the Australian newspaper recently, Bureau of Meteorology telling lies about temperature statistics and refusing to be open about what the proper temperature measurements are, all in the name of fighting for this nonsense that there's a climate emergency. So these government agencies, when they want to keep a narrative going, they are not open. They are deceptive. They are corrupt. They are secretive. Number 11. Not only do politicians not reply, government officers do not reply openly to proper questioning. Number 12. Governments generally have no desire to be transparent, but fool you in saying, oh, you've got freedom of information. And then they'll give you documents after you have a court case, very expensive court case, with material redacted. You see, these politicians and bureaucrats are public servants. They are your servants, and they're not telling you the truth. Why would that be? I'll tell you why. Because it doesn't suit them personally, because they're not concerned about you, they're concerned about themselves. They're not interested in being servants. They are interested in your hard work and taxation supporting a lifestyle that they want. Number 13, the imposition of medical mandates on humanity. Outrageous breach of human rights and human freedoms. The reasons for those mandates are, in my view, corrupt. Nothing to do with public health. Number 14, the NHMRC, the Medical Research Organisation in Australia and their equivalents all around the Western world, that are given large amounts of money by government, and that money is then spent on medical research for the good of humanity, but is not invested in any health solutions that are holistic, that are integrative, that are anything other than related to the administration of drugs. Have a look at the data where the NHMRC spends its research. And then organisations like that complain that the holistic health solutions have not had sufficient research. But the NHMRC funding, the government funding, your taxpayer funds are not, in fact, allocated to do that scientific research that they criticise is not being done. To give you an idea, in Australia, $900 million over 10 years is given to these research bodies that is not spent on holistic health research. Number 15, and probably one of the most concerning, is the willingness of governments to abdicate their sovereignty to the World Health Organization. This is outrageous. It must be stopped. You must be aware of it. The WHO, an unelected body, will have the power to force governments, your governments, to take steps that essentially mean that your governments give away their sovereignty. When the WHO tells you've got to go and fart, then governments have to fart. It's unacceptable. It's outrageous. It is an abdication of responsibility. It is giving away your nation's sovereignty. Why would a government do that if it was concerned about you? So, sad but true state of affairs. You can think of more factors that show you why your ability to trust your governments is reducing by the month. What to do about it? I have 7 solutions. I have 7 strategies rather than solutions, but they could be solutions. Number 1, do not trust government, any level of government. Make that decision. Number 2, do not rely on government being there to help you. Become independent as far as possible. Set up your life that you cannot rely on government. And that's certainly the case because they spend like drunken sailors, and then, like Venezuela, governments run out of money. You cannot afford to rely on government to be there for you. Number 3, follow your passion, not those fields or endeavours that government suggests. Do your own thinking around what you're passionate about doing. Number 4, do your own thinking on all matters. Do not rely on government giving you proper, fair, accurate advice. You cannot do that. I can give you a myriad examples where you can't rely on government advice. Do your own thinking. And one of the things that I think about is the value of coffee. Oh, gosh, that's so good. Number 5, find your community of like thinkers, of people who want to be free of government reliance, who want to be free of government influence, who want to be free of relying on what government shares. And such communities with cooperative learning and cooperation and collaboration can solve this issue of undue reliance on governments. Number 6, you can't know it all. So one of the key elements is decide what it is that you truly do need to know well. I say one of those areas is health. What else do you actually need to know? And so that because what tends to happen is, well, I can't make that decision. I haven't got time to do that. I will rely on government. I'm saying you can no longer do that. Those days are gone. Government institutions cannot be relied upon. Bureaucrats, government bureaucracies cannot be relied upon. So what do you, for your life, or how you want to live your life, strategy is your ability to say no so that you can say yes to certain things, because you can't do everything. And number 7, limit your social media. Limit the engagement with social media for a whole bunch of reasons, including the ability to track you, to track your actions, to track your thinking, your desires. There are risks in extensive use of social media. So, whilst all of this is somewhat depressing, and it is, and it's sad, at the same time, remember that we have the power now, because of communication abilities, to solve many, many problems. You don't need government. You can live life on your terms. And when you are healthy, mentally, physically, spiritually, you are capable of amazing things. So, 6 resources then to help you implement these ideas. The song. And I thought, what's the appropriate song for what I'm talking about here? And they're protest songs. And in the 60s, I started learning the guitar, and I played a lot of Peter, Paul and Mary. And there was their famous protest song, which was written, I think, by Pete Seeger. If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out a warning, I'd hammer out a love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. Anyway, that's what it was about. And what they were ringing out about were 3 things. Okay, it's the hammer of justice. It's the bell of freedom. It's a song about love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. Justice, freedom, love. That's the value of protest songs. So what are your favorite protest songs where you say, hey, these governments are not here to help you? My book this week. You know, I'm a fan of Buckminster Fuller. Regular viewers and listeners know this. Well, I've almost finished this wonderful book, Buckminster Fuller's Universe, His Life and Work, by Lloyd Stephen Seiden, Sieden. Excellent book. And the reason why I think about it in this context is because Bucky said it's up to individuals to make the world better. Do not rely on big organizations or government. And time through his life, he said, I'm not going to align with government. I'm going to do my own thinking. This book will inspire you to do your own thinking and to go through the hard times and the difficulties and challenges of doing your own thinking. My spiritual tip is to meditate deeply on what you need to know deeply. You know, that what are the areas of your life that you need to know deeply? And then when you make that when you meditate on it and come to the conclusion, then you won't waste your time on social media. You won't waste your time on mainstream media. You'll spend your time learning about what you need to know deeply for your life. My health tip is to find alternative health solutions. I don't think you can rely on government health solutions. There are many alternatives available for you. One of them is the worldofwellness.life, a website, worldofwellness.life, and there are many doctors setting up and health practitioners setting up alternative health solutions that are outside the government system. My quote is the famous quote by JFK, and I'm inspired to use it today because Bobby Kennedy, the nephew of JFK, he has announced he's running for president in the US, and I've met Robert F. Kennedy Jr. personally, and so I'm thinking of JFK's quote, that is this: ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And I say that more of us that become self-reliant are doing great things for our country. And lastly, my spot of humour for you is one of my favourite jokes about politics when a kid asks his dad, "Hey, Dad, what's politics?" And his dad scratches his head and he says, well, think about this, he says to his 4-year-old son. Think of me as capitalism. I'm out there earning money. Think of your mother as the government. She's at home managing everything. The nanny that we have here, think of her as the working class. You're the people. We're doing this work for you. And your little baby sister, she's the future. Think about that. So the 4-year-old boy thinks, scratches his head, goes upstairs. That night he's woken by his baby sister crying. He goes to have a look and she's severely soiled his nappy. He goes to his mum and dad's bedroom. His dad's not in bed. His mum's fast asleep. He shakes her. She doesn't respond, goes to the nanny's bedroom. The nanny's bedroom door is locked. He looks in the keyhole and there's his dad in bed with the nanny. He gives up, goes back to bed. Wakes up the next morning and says, "Dad, I think I've worked out what politics is." And his dad scratches his head and says, what is it then? Little Tommy says, "Well, Dad, while capitalism is screwing the working class, the government is fast asleep, the people are ignored, and the future is in deep shit." There you are, dear people, dear viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for listening to my jokes and my humour, but there's important intent behind it. So take the steps for today's big idea to rethink about your willingness to rely on governments. My aim for this show is to inspire you, to motivate you to be able to live life on your terms, to raise your self-awareness around what it means to live life on your terms and to live with passion, not with fear. I invite you to subscribe to this podcast, to this YouTube channel. Please share it with your family, friends, and work colleagues. Visit our websites, Gov't.com, charlesgovest.com. You can access my first 2 books, Passionate People Produce and Passionate Performance, at both of those websites. Now, a couple of key happenings during the week. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's getting too long already, because many of the factors that I've talked about are in fact relevant issues that are happening. But in Australia, there is a big debate going on about a constitutional change to give a voice to Aboriginals in the Constitution. And it is another step by government to cause, with bad intent, it's a bad move, and it's going to create 2 categories of citizen in this country. It's been a disaster in New Zealand, I say, and the nonsense that is sprouted by government about why you should vote in favour of this constitutional change is, in my view, nonsense. It will not improve the situation of Aborigines, and that's another whole question. I should unpack that, because that just shows you the bureaucracy that goes on in the money that's given to Aboriginal causes that doesn't filter down to where it's needed. The other big issue is governments, the federal government in Australia, the Victorian government, they're spending again like drunken sailors, and they want to be bailed out. This spending spree that they go on to buy votes always has an end sad, devastating result for many people. It doesn't affect the elites so much, bear in mind. It doesn't affect the decision makers that public servants go on, but budget woes are top of the newspaper contemplation. The Voice, budget, Daniel Andrews, the Victorian Premier, you can't believe the debt levels of this state. And then lastly, the Liberal Party, which is the Conservatives in Australia, are not in power in any mainland state, only one small state, Tasmania. And this whole question of the progressive agenda, the leftist agenda, the socialist communist agenda that I'm implacably opposed to is alive and well. People think that this government support can go on forever. Don't think so, everybody. That's why you have to be independent. That's why you can't rely on government. So become self-reliant. It's a wonderful way to be. And educating yourself is a crucial element in that self-reliance journey. So if you're new to the show, stick around. The last part is the foundational principles for the show and some background about me. Thanks for watching or listening. We wish you a wonderful week of insight, of increasing self-awareness, of passion, and of challenges that you willingly embrace from a deeply spiritual level of loving your life rather than fear. And on that way, you do live life on your terms. Have a great week. Thanks for being with us. See you next week. Bye. Now, for listeners and viewers who want to know more about my background and what else I do with my life, as well as the foundational principles for this show that's now over 140 episodes, here it is. Since 1993, when I left my legal career, a career that I loved, so this is now 30 years, I have inspired, motivated and provoked people to discover and pursue their passion. I have helped people with the books that I've written, with speeches at conferences, with seminars, with work with companies, team building programs, and one-on-one executive coaching. I've done this work in big companies, small companies, in government entities. One of my core principles is that freedom is what makes us truly human. That's why one of the greatest threats of government that leads you to observe the law is the loss of your freedom via being jailed, incarceration. Without freedom, you and I are not much different to animals. This commitment I have for freedom is carried out by me primarily through 5 channels of activity. Number 1, I fight to preserve your freedom and everyone's freedom to pursue their passion. Number 2, inspiring you to be free through excellent health. Number 3, helping preserve freedom globally through the expansion of industrial hemp. I'm CEO of a hemp company that manufactures the world's best machinery. Hemp is a miraculous crop that enables every community to thrive independently of government. And in this way, the power of government to take away your freedom is minimized. Of course, as a subset of that, I fight for freedom to drink coffee. Number 4, I fight for freedom through legal strategies, through being the interface between lawyers and their clients, because clients don't understand lawyers and lawyers don't understand clients. And finally, as chairman of the Australian Institute of Comedy, I fight for freedom of thought and speech by comedians through humour, comedy and laughter, because suppressing the freedom of speech of comedians is the beginning of the end of freedom. The foundational principles for this weekly show are founded on the formula SA plus P equals S. Your self-awareness, SA plus P, your passion, equals S, your success. You will be successful when you have high self-awareness and you're pursuing your passion. The best definition of success that I have found over the years is this: success is the progressive realization of your worthy ideal. This show is also guided by Socrates' famous principle, the unexamined life is not worth living. You can see I'm wearing my red jacket. I always wear my red jacket in public presentations. Red is the colour of passion. Each week I explore one big idea that can change your life. And it's just one big idea because then there's a chance that you will remember it. If I share too many ideas, it all goes into fluff and you can't remember it and you keep doing what you've always done. I hope to inspire you to make one small change, just one thing. When I share that big idea, I then share some practical resources. You've heard what those 6 resources are: a song, the lyrics of a song, a book, a spiritual tip, a health tip, a quote, and of course, some humor. This show is not politically correct. And I love certain addictions, including coffee and exercise and reading, and some unmentionable in polite company addictions. You can turn your mind to what you might think that might be. This show definitely subscribes to the view that we have a spiritual life. So if that offends you, don't watch, don't listen. I promise you I don't include anything in this show that I don't believe to be of value, that I don't believe to be useful. I would never accept sponsorship for a product that I didn't believe was of value. If you have any questions or suggestions, please email me at charles@govs.com. Again, thanks for listening to this last piece as well. I look forward to having you with me for future shows in the weeks and months to come. Bye.